The moment she stepped onto the court, something felt different, and fans noticed it immediately. Not because Caitlin Clark wasn't competing. Not because she lacked intensity. But because, after all the anticipation surrounding her return, the reality of her situation following injury became clear within just a few possessions. And now, as the new WNBA season begins, one question is quietly taking over the conversation. What version of Caitlin Clark are we actually going to see this year? According to recent discussions and early observations, this isn't just about stats. It's about rhythm, timing, and the subtle adjustments that only become visible when a player returns from physical setbacks. To understand what's really happening, we need to take a step back. Clark entered the league with unprecedented attention. Her transition from college dominance to the professional stage was already one of the most closely watched storylines in basketball. Every game, every possession, every decision, it all carried weight. And then, the injury added another layer. Now, to be clear, there's no confirmed narrative suggesting a major long-term issue. Reports suggest the injury she dealt with was not expected to derail her season entirely. But here's where things get interesting. The difference between being cleared to play and being fully back to form is massive. And that gap? It's what fans are starting to notice. Early in the new season, there are subtle signs. The explosiveness off the first step might look just slightly less sharp. The timing on deep-range shots, still elite, but perhaps not as automatic as fans became used to. Even decision-making under pressure can shift when a player is still rebuilding full confidence in their body. This isn't unusual. In fact, it's expected. But because this is Caitlin Clark, everything is magnified. According to analysts and ongoing discussions, players coming back from injury often go through what's sometimes called a recalibration phase. It's not just physical recovery, it's mental synchronization. Trusting your body again. Reacting instinctively instead of thinking through movements. And in Clark's case, that recalibration is happening in real time on one of the biggest stages in women's basketball. Now, let's talk about expectations. Clark didn't just enter the WNBA as a rookie. She entered as a phenomenon. Her range, court vision, and scoring ability created comparisons and hype rarely seen at this level. So when fans tune in, they're not just expecting solid performances, they're expecting moments. Logo threes. Game-changing plays. Instant impact. So when those moments don't come as frequently, or don't look quite the same, it raises questions. But here's the important distinction. There's a difference between decline and adjustment. And right now, all signs point toward adjustment. Reports suggest that coaching staff and team systems are also evolving around her. That matters. Because returning from injury isn't just about individual performance, it's about reintegrating into a system that may have shifted during your absence. Timing with teammates. Spacing. Offensive flow. All of it needs to be rebuilt. And when you combine that with the natural learning curve of a rookie adapting to the WNBA's pace and physicality, the situation becomes even more layered. Now, let's bring in another angle, the competition. This league doesn't slow down. Players like Angel Reese and others across the league continue to bring intensity every single game. Defensive schemes are becoming more tailored. Opponents are studying tendencies. And for a high-profile player like Clark, that attention is constant. So when you're coming off an injury and simultaneously facing the most focused defenses of your career, even small adjustments can look more significant than they actually are. Fans are reacting in different ways. Some are expressing concern, pointing out moments where Clark doesn't look as fluid or as dominant as expected. Others are urging patience, reminding everyone that recovery isn't instant and that long-term performance matters more than early season impressions. According to recent discussions online, there's also a growing conversation about pressure. Not just physical pressure, but narrative pressure. Clark isn't just playing games. She's carrying expectations from fans, media, and the broader basketball community. Every performance becomes part of a larger story. And when you're returning from injury, that spotlight doesn't dim, it intensifies. But here's where things get even more interesting. Sometimes, these situations create something unexpected. Instead of relying purely on physical ability, players begin to refine other aspects of their game. Court awareness sharpens. Passing decisions become quicker. Shot selection evolves. And in Clark's case, we're already seeing glimpses of that. Even if the scoring isn't always explosive, the playmaking remains impactful. The ability to stretch defenses is still there. And perhaps most importantly, the confidence to take big shots hasn't disappeared. That matters more than people think. Because confidence is often the last piece to fully return after injury, and the fact that Clark continues to play assertively suggests that mentally, she's not holding back. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture. What does this mean for the rest of the season? If we look at historical patterns across basketball, players who return from early setbacks often improve significantly as the season progresses. Timing comes back. Conditioning improves. The game slows down again. So what we're seeing now might not be the final version of Caitlin Clark this season. It might just be the beginning phase. And if that's true, then the early observations fans are making could look very different a few months from now. There's also the team dynamic to consider. As Clark continues to integrate and adjust, her teammates are also adapting to her presence. Chemistry isn't built overnight. It develops through repetition, trust, and shared experience. And sometimes, a slower start can actually lead to stronger long-term cohesion. Fans are reacting to this aspect as well. Some believe the team needs to put the ball in Clark's hands more to accelerate that process. Others argue for a more balanced approach, allowing her to ease back into full form without forcing high-pressure situations. Both perspectives have merit, because on one hand, giving a player rhythm requires usage. On the other hand, managing recovery requires patience. Balancing those two ideas is one of the biggest challenges teams face in situations like this. Another factor worth considering is how narratives evolve. Right now, the conversation is centered around what looks different. But narratives in sports change quickly. One strong performance, one breakout game, one defining moment, and suddenly the entire discussion shifts. We've seen it happen before. So while early season impressions matter, they don't define the entire story. According to analysts, what matters more is trajectory. Is the player improving? Are the adjustments working? Is confidence building? And in Clark's case, those answers are still unfolding. There's also a broader implication for the league. Clark's presence has brought increased attention to the WNBA. More viewers, more discussions, more scrutiny. And with that comes a different kind of spotlight, not just on her, but on the league as a whole. So when fans analyze her performance, they're also engaging with a larger conversation about growth, expectations, and the evolving landscape of women's basketball. That's why this moment feels bigger than just one player's return. It's about how stars navigate adversity, how narratives are shaped, and how the game continues to evolve. Now, let's be clear about something important. There's no verified indication that Clark is struggling in a way that suggests long-term concern. The observations being discussed are subtle, nuanced, the kind of things that only become noticeable because expectations are so high. And that distinction matters, because it shifts the conversation from concern to curiosity. Instead of asking, "What's wrong?" the more accurate question might be, "What's changing?" And that's a much more interesting discussion. Fans are reacting, analysts are watching, and the season is just getting started. So here's the thought to leave you with. If what we're seeing right now is just Caitlin Clark adjusting, recalibrating, and gradually returning to full form, then what happens when she's fully back? Does her game evolve into something even more complete? Or do the early season challenges shape a different kind of player altogether? Because sometimes, it's not the dominant start that defines a season. It's how a player responds once everything isn't perfect anymore.